This is OCTV, Oxford Community Television, serving Oxford and Addison Townships with the best in local programming. On Charter Channel 191, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and our website, OCCTV.org. OCTV, we provide local programming that brings you closer to home.
I'm John Oetjens, and welcome to Schooling Around. A funny thing happened on the way to the 21st century. Silicon Valley's influence permeated our educational system. It seemed to become more important to learn how to navigate Windows, write programs, and get some kind of college degree than it did to build houses and learn welding. Before we knew it, many schools had changed their curriculums and sold equipment that they thought was no longer relevant. Besides, the financial bubble burst and job demand went down. Now it seems we are emerging from hard times. Construction is increasing, among other things, and companies are looking for help. Problem is, trained help is hard to find. We're going to spend the next 2 episodes of Schooling Around looking into this situation. This week, we'll talk to Oxford Superintendent Dr. William Skilling about this. We'll also take a look at what's available to our students outside of the district by talking to one of our counselors. Next week, we'll look at occupational classes available right here at home. Stay tuned. Dr. Bill Skilling is our superintendent here in Oxford. We had a chance to chat with him about the educational dilemma with skilled trades.
Well, there's a history to this. Starting back in the mid to late 80s, there was this movement to move away from industrial education to technology or tech ed education. And industrial education model is where students are trained to do something, do it very specifically, to take order, take direction. So under the old industrial education model, it was less about critical thinking and more about following direction. Well, then they moved to tech ed. And the good part of that is we needed to teach students how to work as a member of a team, how to do problem solving, project-based type learning things that would be authentic. But in that process of moving away from industrial ed to tech ed, they threw out the baby with the bathwater. And what I mean by that is, today we have a great demand for machinists, tool and die makers, pattern makers, as 3 examples, plastic injection mold operators, and so forth. But we don't have the types of classes that lay the foundation both for awareness and start developing skill sets and interest in students in wanting to pursue those, I think, very lucrative careers. They are high-paying jobs. And so when we made this switch, high schools all across the country threw out their mechanical and manual-based type machinery like these engine lathes and vertical mills and grinders and welders. They thought, oh, everything's going to be spot welded. Well, that's just not true. And they replaced it with what I call tinker toy technology, where it looks like Legos and they got electronics to it and they learn about XYZ axis for CNC machinery, for example. But the problem is, they're not problem solving anything. They're just learning about the XYZ axis. And so what we need to be doing is combining the best of what we did in industrial arts with what the best is in tech ed. It's not really one or the other, as people think. It's both. And so I would suggest that we need to start building high schools or renovating and creating spaces by which students are learning to use manual equipment to have a fundamental understanding of the principles behind what's going on with a computer numerically controlled machinery. You need both. Secondly, you need to create design classrooms like for AutoCAD, but start the students using a drawing board, having a semester of architectural and then mechanical design on the board. Then the next 3 years they use the AutoCAD software, mechanical desktop, and so forth. And they need to be given authentic problems, problems in which they're unfamiliar with, areas in which may be unpredictable, and do this in the form of a team. So if I could give an example of this, when I was in 8th grade, industrial arts, I made a cutting board for my mom. I was given a blue sheet of paper, I even remember the color, and I had step-by-step instructions for how to make that cutting board. What was I graded on? That the dimensions were exact what they were supposed to be. I don't remember what they were at the time, but say 8 inches by 12 inches, for example. That I sanded correctly with a grain set against the grain, and hopefully that I used something like vegetable oil to seal it, not some toxic substance. And if I did that, I got an A. Compare that to an 8th grade project today where, okay, here are the materials to build a CO2 car. Now go out and build the fastest CO2 car you can. You got to think, well, wait a minute here. I need to know something about lift. I need to know something about drag. I need to know something about weight distribution. I need to know something about aerodynamics. I need to know something about lubricants. And all of a sudden, I'm doing a whole lot of research. The point being is, I could build that CO2 car using manual equipment and still gain the same outcomes of that learning. I could build that cutting board using manual equipment, okay, having very different outcomes. But it should start there and then become more complex in terms of the problems, the areas of unpredictability, and the teamwork required and collaboration that's required to solve a problem, because the real genius happens when you have a group of people working together to try to solve a problem. That's where most great ideas happen and inventions are created. It's not by a single individual.
But we have a funding challenge to do all this too, don't we?
Absolutely. So like when Oxford went for their $70 million bond in February 2009, it lost, not by a wide margin, but I can't remember exactly, but it was fairly close. I think 200 and some votes or something, if I recall correctly. The point being is, had that passed, we were going to build a big engineering, a lab area. We would have had what I'd call dirty manufacturing, the manual machinery, clean manufacturing, where we would have the computer numerically controlled machinery. We would have design classrooms, you know, the boards and AutoCAD, and we would have created a complete system. Now, what I mean by creating a complete system is we can go from design, build, test, evaluate, adjust, re-implement. We actually produce something, okay, manufacture it. Now, because it didn't pass, when we went to the $33 million bond, we knew we still had to do something, because this is such an important area and there's such a shortage of engineers and skilled workers. So we took existing classroom space, office space, a wood shop that used to be part of the middle school, and took down all the walls and remodeled it into an engineering lab. So we do have some of the traditional manual equipment found in there. We also have CNC machinery. But here's our dilemma today. Twofold. Number one is we don't have the space to expand, and we're almost completely full of capacity. Number two is we don't have the right tools and space to develop the skilled trade future workers that we need to develop. And so it's really a twofold problem. So I'm hoping that someday in the future, whenever that next bond comes, we can put that addition on to be able to address these issues, because I've been approached by members of the Planning Commission. I've been approached by people who work in manufacturing looking for skilled tradespeople and saying, what can the schools do to help? And I said, well, if you can help us find funding, we'll make it happen. But funding is our issue.
And there should be a lot of public support for something like this, wouldn't you think?
Oh, I think there is. I think, you know, like, people know what the needs are out there, and there are a lot of our students, like I said, who are missing out on these opportunities where this would be a perfect career path for them to take, because, again, these jobs are paying, in many cases, a higher salary out of high school than a teacher receives out of college. And their opportunity to grow financially is equal to or better than even a teacher. Now, why is that true? Because it isn't like the old days where you just could go into a factory, learn your trade, and you're done being educated. The way in which these jobs are being performed are constantly evolving, which requires more and more education. And so a lot of the students that we used to place in our manufacturing companies locally and our tool and die shops, they required them to get an associate's degree, but they paid for it. So they're constantly being educated more on their skills and also getting an associate's degree.
Yeah, I know that, like in our, I was told by one of our pre-engineering teachers today that there are kids who have satisfactorily completed those classes and graduate who have been hired right out of high school, and then the company that hired them footed the bill for them to complete their college education.
Absolutely. And you think about it, a full ride. We're talking full rides here. And so my brother is a good example of this. He's been working for General Motors for 42 years, okay? And he's an engineer today. But when he went into General Motors, he didn't have a college degree. He went right from high school, graduating in June, to working on the floor in August of that summer, 2 months later. And so what happened was he still decided he wanted to get a degree, so he worked part-time for 7.5 years. He went to school part-time for 7.5 years to get his engineering degree. In the meantime, he also got accepted into the apprenticeship program for a tool and die worker, or tool and die maker. So he went through a 4-year apprenticeship, going to university for 7.5 years to get his engineering degree. And so by the time he graduated, he was a journeyman tool and die maker, engineering degree. Where can you find that combination? And
Almost overqualified.
yeah, well, he had so many opportunities as a result of it because he didn't just have the theory; he had the practice. And so my point is, if we can get more kids to match the theory and practice and the application, those are the golden ones. Those are the ones that'll inherit the earth when it comes to jobs and opportunities.
In 1967, voters approved the establishment and operation of 4 vocational education centers, now the Oakland Schools technical campuses. In 2000, the 4 centers became part of Oakland Schools. We'll look into how Oxford uses this facility in just a moment.
Hi, this is Connie again from Connie's Kitchen, coming to you from Treetop Lodge, the place where magic happens and unicorns roam freely. Of course, you have to come to the lodge to understand about the unicorn thing, but they're everywhere. We'll be doing a wide variety of cooking shows here on Oxford Community Television, and I personally would like to thank the crew for coming out and giving me this opportunity to share my passion and what I love to do with you from Connie's Kitchen. So please join us on OCTV, join us at the lodge, and look for us all over the town. And if you see unicorns, they probably came from here. See you soon.
Mary Guzik has been a guidance counselor at Oxford High School for over 14 years. She has helped many of our students take advantage of Oakland Technical. We stopped by her office.
Individual schools could not have the technology and the rooms and the teaching facility to do a variety of technology-based or career-focused education. So they came up with these satellite sites where they could offer it, and then districts could send the students that were interested into it, so they didn't have to buy all the equipment to manage a healthcare program or to manage a cosmetology program. So it was, I think it was in Oakland County had the answer to kind of have these satellites with career-focused educational opportunities.
It's pretty obvious they spent a lot of money on this. I mean, they have 4 campuses, and when you look at the course lineup, you see things like biotechnology and environmental science and information technology and construction technology, cosmetology, culinary arts, engineering, health sciences. A lot of stuff, some of which you can even get college credit for, I guess.
You can, some of them you can get certified to go right into workplace situations. Some you can earn some college credit and kind of continue that way. So some, and there are some employers that are looking for kids that just will have that skill set, that have the reliability, understanding of the safety related to the industries that they're looking at. So it saves them in terms of training. So the students come in with a real skill set attached to them.
What's your approach as a counselor to this with the kids? I mean, do we have many kids participating in these programs?
Well, again, at Oxford we have some career-focused education that takes place within our building. So we do have programs here. We have a variety of programs in our technology department, engineering department. Our auto department
Right.
has, we have video media. So there's a variety of things that we offer here in the building. We do have, I would say, about 35 students maybe that go to the OTEC Center for specific career placement training. And I would say probably the challenge when we present it to our students is there's issues with transportation. There's issues with our scheduling mechanism just because we do a rotating schedule. So we have to plan with students. So if a student is saying, probably the most common one we hear from is, I really want to do like culinary or cosmetology is probably one of the most popular ones. It is in the whole county. And we're very fortunate because it's located in our Auburn Hills campus. However, it's so popular that they can only take so many students. And so we advertise it to the students, and we have to plan with how that's going to look with their schedule because they're committing like a half a day to being at that tech campus, and how are they going to balance it with their other academic classes plus the transportation. And some of them have commitments to after school work or summer work and things like that, because a lot of the state certifications require a specific number of hours in order to get that certification. So there are students that are pretty committed to that profession, so
I guess my next question was, I guess you have to be able to work with them in helping to plan their schedule so they can fit everything together.
right.
And then there's the transportation issue. Does the school offer transportation to certain campuses, or?
Well, we again use the Auburn Hills campus. That's the northeast
Okay.
campus. We do a bus in the morning, to the AM campus that brings them back. Students that opt to do the afternoon program have to drive themselves, and even for that bus, they have to be at the school earlier than most of our buses come because the bus leaves here at like 7 o'clock in the morning. So they have to kind of get to the school. So they have to be really pretty committed. Families are committed to the program so that they can take advantage of it.
So they have to really want to do
Yeah.
the particular course that they're
Mhm.
going to be involved in. What would you say the most popular course is that the
Yeah.
kids go after?
Well, I would say we have a pretty broad spectrum of them. I think some students, cosmetology, we have a cap on it. They only allow so many. They will only allow so many because there's such interest. We have a lot in healthcare. We have a lot in culinary. We have a lot in they have an engineering component. They haven't, like we do auto mechanic here, but they also do auto body. So if they want to do auto body repair, even in their the business department, construction. So depending on really what that student wants, I would say I have students in all of those disciplines right now.
We'll have more after this. It turns out if you play your cards right, Oak Tech can even help with college. Mary Guzik tells us more. If a student successfully completes the first year of their training, a senior successfully completes the first year of their training there, they're able to continue in some cases for the second year of their training, but they have to pay some tuition, I guess.
And I always have to clarify that with them. I think there are those options. Most of the programs that we do, students go their junior and senior year. So they do a 2-year program. There are some that if they haven't finished, they could stay for that 5th year on a tuition base. So it does offer those opportunities.
Have some of our kids been able to get college credits down there?
I think there have been some that have, let me think if they've earned college credit. They may have articulated, what happens is the colleges will have like an agreement saying if you complete this and this is the same as this college class. And if they have that agreement, I think in the business you'll see that sometimes, like some of the programs that you would learn for like Excel or Word or Works, or they would have that. And so if you got that certification, you could get college credit for that.
Is there any hesitancy on participating with that program for whatever reason?
I think that the challenge for I think there are some challenges that kids have to face when they're doing it. And some of it is, again, like you started off saying, the state kind of said everybody's college ready and they're going to go to universities. And the new curriculum that the legislation has kind of very specific expectations that students move to. So I think sometimes that need to get through the curriculum and that goal of I want to be college ready sometimes interferes with their time, the time that they can devote to like the tech center, which is a block of time. So it's they're there 3 hours of their day plus transportation. So that's a conflict. I think the other challenge is because of the scheduling and where we're located, it isn't like in our back door. It's a drive there and to get them there. And we do a schedule, rotating schedule with late starts. And so those students that opt to do a program at OTEC in the morning go even on those late start days. They forego, and for sometimes a kid to say, I'm not gonna, sleep in, that it's because they believe that it's worthwhile for them to do that. So I think there are some of those challenges that happen.
Right.
I think outside of like having room in their schedule to do that, and I think sometimes, like some students will want to explore some of the classes we offer here for, like in engineering or in our auto program or our technology pieces, and it's how to fit it all in. So sometimes they have to make choices.
Seems like we've gone from an era where, at least when I was a kid, everybody should get a college degree. And it seems like that's being rethought a bit these days, and especially with some employers needing people
Very much so.
in certain fields where they don't necessarily have to have a college degree. How do you see that sort of situation impacting education?
Yeah, I will say, like when I started here, and that would, like probably 13, 14 years ago, really the push at that time was that you wanted career-focused education, you wanted direction. They were talking about like the percentage of jobs that did require, the professionalism needed from a bachelor's degree. And they're really saying that that need for like skilled laborers, the trades, in the state of Michigan, all the data that's out there now is showing how vital those services are, how the workforce is now diminishing either through retirement or, job changes, and that there's these big gaps and they don't have the skills or the students ready to fill those slots.
Right.
So there is a big change, and they're finding it in healthcare, they're finding it in the trades, they're finding it. I think technology has brought with it just just a
Right.
slew of advancements that are constantly changing, and I think that that also, I mean, the need for people that really know the information technology pieces and how to manage systems and all that, those jobs are growing. But not all of them require like a 4-year degree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you think of course, we're just guessing at this, but you think probably there'll be some more bond issues on the ballot in the near future, and
Well, I'm sure there's, well, part of it, and it's like you had started off saying, is that the technology, even the technology that you bring into school becomes, like how many phones have people gone through since
Right.
phones came out, and every year new technologies out there, and the other stuff is outdated very quickly. By the time it's installed, you're working on a plan to change it up or to add additional things. So
but I can't think it's kind of funny. Of course, I'm reaching back to the caveman era now, but when I was in high school, if you were in shop, that kind of meant that you didn't have the brains to pass algebra and physics and chemistry and the college prep courses. But now, of course, this is oversimplifying things, I realize, but we're in a situation now where employers seem to be crying for certain skills. I mean, things like welding, carpentry, building is picking up these days, and so on and so forth. Now all of a sudden, there's some very well-paying jobs out there for people who know how to do these things.
And that is very true. And actually, Oakland Schools just hosted an informational night. They're partnering with some of the community colleges, and they're doing information on really, I think, it's an initiative that's in place for like the old kind of internship components, where you have companies that are hiring a student, paying for their training, and shaping their training with their employment, and offering them jobs so that when they are done with their community college, they could be in a job for, hired, making very good money for starting without any debt.
Absolutely. And I think we've had a couple of kids involved in programs like that, haven't we?
We have, and I think it's a growing, I think the employers, especially I think in Oakland County, that has a lot of the engineering components that still are manufacturing based, are seeing that we need those skills. We need those students that understand the technology, that like the hands-on stuff, and that can fill this workforce piece. And I think the thing that they really kind of said, like they were showing different aspects of it, and like I think when you think of like what you're saying, that old shop, and the grease on the floor and that, and you've realized that shops aren't like that anymore.
No, they aren't.
They are people in nice outfits that are clean, and they are trying to keep the technology clean.
They're hooking the motors up to the computer.
Right, and it's digital, it's electronics, it is understanding the aspects of hydraulics and all those things, but it's definitely problems shooting from like, with buttons, I think.
The American Job Center website was set up by the government to keep employment statistics and help people find jobs. If you look at their top 25 listing of needed workers, you'll find that 14 of those require less than a bachelor's degree. Next week, we focus on classes available right here in our own school. Thanks to Kyle Snage at the controls, our editor Dan Zweiss, and you for watching. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.